Hi and welcome to Iconic Rides. I'm Olivia.
I'm Kerryann.
And I'm Colin.
On this programme, we're going to show you how to buy, sell or restore an iconic car.
We'll also be driving and describing what makes these such motoring icons.
And I'll be telling you some of the problems you might come across and talking to some experts on that particular car.
These iconic cars are becoming harder and harder to find, with prices rising through the roof every single day. So, where do you begin to look? Kerry and I have been friends for many years. This is where we've spent a lot of time in our previous roles searching for the latest fashion trends. Anything from bags to shoes to dresses.
And the great thing about the internet is we can do a worldwide search. All we have to do is type in what we're looking for.
For a number of months, we've been searching for a beautiful, iconic Italian classic, the Alfa Romeo Spider, and good ones are becoming really hard to find.
And we happened to come across this one in white. The trouble was, it was in Paris.
We needed Colin's expertise on this, so we sent him to Paris to go and collect it, and is now back in the UK.
This is an Alfa Romeo Spider Series 1. This is a 1966 model, which was the first year it was introduced. It is fitted with a 1570cc twin-cam engine, which produced 108 horsepower. Its biggest plus was its 5-speed gearbox. These early models are also often called Duetto and feature servo-assisted disc brakes all round. Rust was these cars' biggest problem, and good restored ones now fetch very high prices. Car back from Paris, she never missed a beat. Temperature was normal all the way, oil pressure was good. It was a real pleasure, just like today. One owned the car, spent all his life in Paris, bought in Paris, lived in Paris, driven round Paris until it came here. No wonder the guy kept it so long. Gearbox is smooth and easy, steering's light. Just point it where you want it to go, it goes there. The engine, although not massive, keeps up with modern day traffic. Plenty of power there if you want to use it. Drives so smooth. For a 50-odd year old car, Alfa Romeo really got it right. Can't be many examples in this condition, I know. This one's all original chrome, all original interior, no rust on it at all anywhere. This is a gem. This car puts a smile on your face. Beautiful day, Italian classic. What more could you ask for? A day to remember, driving this lovely classic Alfa Romeo. Perfect. Whoever buys this car is going to get a bargain. It is fantastic. I've got to say that all the cars we've bought and sold over the years, this has got to be one of my favourites. This particular model is now very sought after. But to see what goes into buying and restoring one, we need to talk to someone in the know.
I'm Jamie Porter from the Alfa Workshop in Royston. My passion for Alfa started 35 years ago with an Alfa Sud. And then I got a Bertone Coupe, a 105 series car. I acquired this car in 1988 and it was a bit of a wreck, so I rebuilt it. And while I was rebuilding it, I sort of noticed some odd things about it. The brackets for the servos were hand welded in rather than spot welded, which I thought was slightly unusual, and it had a lot of little differences. It had kilometres per hour clocks and all the instruments were in Italian. Oh, and in the glove box there were tax discs from Milan. There were 7 of them, and the car was purportedly a 1977 car. It was imported to the UK in '77. So I did a little bit of research and I found the chassis number on it, eventually under layers and layers of paint. And the chassis number ended 1454001. So I did a little checking, and it turns out that it's a factory test car for the right-hand drive with the twin servos. They changed the headlights to quartz, and they did a few other little modifications, and it was their test car. So I did it up, tried to keep it as original as I could, but being a sort of one-off, it was more a case of I had to restore it to how I got it. So the whole history of the car is there in that it's now not a 1750, which it should be, it's a 2 litre. At some point in its history, someone put a 2 litre in it. When it came to the UK, it was a 2 litre, so it could even be the factory that put the 2 litre in it. It has white indicators, whereas a UK car should have orange indicators. So it has lots of little detailed changes from where it was a test car. It's a very, very interesting car. I acquired it purely by luck. It turns out it's a bit special. The value of most post-war Alfa Romeos doesn't justify huge expense on restoration. Yes, there are the classic Alfa Romeos, but run-of-the-mill Giulias realistically don't fetch huge money. So a 66 Duetto in perfect condition would be worth between 25 and 30,000. When you consider that to rebuild each sill on that car would cost you £2,500, a minor restoration on the sills, without doing floors or any other corrosion, is going to cost you £5,000. In 1966, the Duetto was released. Its name was chosen by ballots, and the winner of the ballots won the Duetto. He won a car. It came with the Alfa Romeo twin cam, the classic Alfa Romeo twin cam. It had a 5-speed gearbox to a live rear axle. The Duetto was in fact Battista Pininfarina's last design, and it was made in the Pininfarina factory, not in Alfa Romeo's factory, and it was built along the same production lines as the Fiat 1500 and the Peugeot 404, which were also designed by Pininfarina. Alfa Romeo are one of the leaders in technology in all sorts of fields. Alfa were the first car with variable cam timing, was an Alfetta Gold Cloverleaf in 1981, used common rail diesel, used direct injection petrol. Alfa were the first production car that used a robotised manual gearbox. So all along, Alfa Romeo have been at the very edge of technology. The engine is a wet liner. It follows the Alfa tradition from the 1920s, 1930s. So it's basically an aluminium box with freestanding liners in the middle. And then the head then clamps them down and seals them. So it's a very, very beautiful engine, really well designed. It has various advanced features to make it more reliable. It has sodium-cooled exhaust valves, which are cooled directly by the water pump. So the water pump pumps water round the valve seats to keep them as cool as possible, so the valves last as long as possible. The 105 series is the last classic rear-wheel drive car. The chassis was new. It was one of the first chassis that had a crumple zone. It was crash tested. It was a very advanced car for its time. It was unitary construction, i.e. the body was the chassis. So the body was always stressed, which meant as it flexed, it tended to damage the protection for the chassis, and it would tend to corrode. It wasn't as bad as the Alfa Sud, which was the Alka-Seltzer of cars, because it was made in the north, and it's generally accepted that Alfa Nords, as opposed to Alfa Suds, were a lot better prepared than their southern counterparts. The chassis was really, really well designed. With the chassis, they went to great lengths to reduce the unsprung weight, to the point where they mounted the shock absorbers upside down, so the heavy part of the shock absorber was attached to the body, not to the suspension. And little tricks like that helped give you a comfortable ride while still giving the sporty feel and turning. So they're very, very nice to drive. Because it's such a unique marque, people who buy Alfas tend to be individuals, characters, people who think from themselves. They don't tend to follow the herd. So everyone who owns an Alfa will own it for a different reason. All types of people are represented in the Alfa Romeo fraternity. It's a very wide club. Jeremy Clarkson famously said, "You're not a true petrolhead till you've owned an Alfa Romeo." Yes, I believe that. There is always some character in Alfa. They have something that makes them special. Yes, there are ones that have been duds, but every so often they turn up an absolute jewel. And the Duetto is definitely one of the jewels in the crown.
Let's say you have £30,000 to spend on a car, but you want something a little bit different, something with heritage.
A classic with a modern twist, perhaps.
This particular car has been around for over 50 years. It certainly is iconic. What we have here is the result of 50 years of evolution of an iconic car, the Ford Mustang. You can see the original DNA running through both of these cars.
The car may have grown bigger and heavier over the years, but it's unmistakable what these two cars are.
So how did it all begin? The first generation Mustang appeared in 1964, and by 1965 it was its most successful product launched since a Model A, and by 2018 over 10 million had been produced in the US. One of the original designers, John Najjar, got the idea of the name of the car from his love of World War II fighter plane, the P-51 Mustang. The first generation Mustang production ran from 1965 to 1973. To enhance the range, performance models were launched including the Mach 1, the Boss 302 and the Boss 429. The Mustang became iconic in American culture after featuring in many Hollywood films. Who could forget the car chase in the film Bullitt, featuring Steve McQueen? The car's heritage and history are obvious by looking at these two cars. So, what has changed over the years?
In 1965, when the first generation of these two models were launched, they both retailed at around $2,500, about $21,000 in today's money. At the time, a Ferrari was about $14,000 and the average house in the US cost about $20,000.
These two cars are the S550, more commonly known as the sixth generation of the Mustang, and were first seen in 2015. It is the first Mustang to have had a global launch and be offered in right-hand drive from the factory.
Price-wise, a sixth generation Mustang will cost you between £27,000 and £37,000, depending on engine size and spec.
A 6-speed manual is standard, and a 6-speed auto was offered, which was then updated in 2018 as a 10-speed auto. They also come in some pretty amazing colours. This one is lightning blue. Under the bonnet, or hood as our American cousins call it, there is a lot more electronics and technology which not only make the car safer but more reliable. But perhaps the standout feature is the all-aluminium engine.
We could stand and talk about these two cars all day, but to truly appreciate them, we have to drive them. Wow, that sounds lovely.
Wow, this feels amazing to drive. Kerry and I met at a fashion show in London, and over the years we've kept bumping into each other on shoots or shows. A conversation one night turned to cars, and we found we both had a keen interest in them. I used to have one of the first generation Mustangs, so this is just bringing back so many memories. Love the feel of it, the speed on it. The only thing that gets me is that the brakes are unreal.
Wow, feel this car move. It's so gravelly, the engine and the response of the steering and the brakes. It's all very tight. You can understand why they call this muscle car. The engine feels like it's been injected with steroids. It's fantastic to drive, absolutely wonderful. The Americans have had the Mustang for over 50 years, but they're still quite rare on the British roads and still turn heads. I wonder how Olivia's getting on with the manual.
It's definitely a car for a petrol head. It's just so nice to drive. The sound of it, the way it drives, the way it feels, it's so smooth. God, it feels so wide at the front, the bonnet is just huge. It's oncoming traffic, I'm thinking, trying to suck myself in. Forget just how big they actually are. I always thought the Mustang was a bit of a guy thing, but after driving this, I think us girls have been missing out. So ladies, get yourself down to your local Ford dealer and book yourself a test drive. Oh, that sound! It's purring. Each time you go up in the gears, it's purring. It sounds amazing.
It's very easy to drive. You could just pop to the local shops or cruise down to the south of France. Oh my God, this car's so fun to drive. It's absolutely amazing. Is it as good as the Audi or BMW? No, it's not. But then again, it's not Audi or BMW money. I think it's fabulous value. It's that engine.
What this car has is the fun factor. There's a real sense of occasion, especially when you press that loud pedal. This car is so much more than I expected. Wow, what a wonderful way to spend the afternoon. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
I can't stop smiling. Can I keep it?
We set out to find out if you had £30,000 to spend on something a little bit different, was the Mustang a good choice?
Spending my own money, I'd take the convertible.
I'd take either. As I said, I used to own a first generation Mustang, and this one just brought back so many memories. Do you remember that beautiful Alfa Romeo Spider we showed you earlier on in the programme? Well, it's now on its way to its brand new home back in Europe, where I'm sure it's going to continue to turn loads of heads for many years to come.
Well, we're nearly out of time, but I must say, this new adventure with Olivia's been great fun, a real eye-opener.
I agree with Kerry. I think we lose sight of just how much fun and passion cars can bring to our lives. They're not just a means of getting from A to B. There's so much more than that. We'll see you next time.